My boss laughed when I asked for time off for my son's surgery. He said, "We're not a charity, man. Family problems are your own problem." So I finished the quarter, then quit, took his biggest client, and hired half his team. This morning, 17 missed calls. One voicemail. "Can we talk?" Hey there. We're working hard to hit our first 1,000 subscribers. If you love true, emotional stories, hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know. Now let's get into the story. We're not a charity, man. Family problems are your own problem. That's what my boss said. Dead serious. No smirk, no hesitation, no sympathy. Just those words, dropped like a brick on my chest. Right there in front of the entire Monday morning meeting. I should probably back up. My name's Mike. I'm 36, married, and the father of a little boy named Aiden. Aiden's 6, and he's got this rare heart condition that sounds like a word you need a medical degree to pronounce. Long story short, we've known since he was born that one day, he'd need surgery. We were just hoping it wouldn't come so soon. The procedure wasn't optional. It wasn't cosmetic. It wasn't, "Oh, maybe we can delay this." It was scheduled because his last checkup showed signs of deterioration. I won't lie, I didn't sleep for 2 days after that. Now here's the thing. I'm not some guy who calls out for every sniffle. I've worked for this company for 6 years. I've given up weekends, holidays, birthdays, all of it. I helped land our largest account. I ran the most complex marketing campaign we've ever done. Hell, I trained half the current sales team myself when we went remote. I wasn't asking for a vacation in Cabo. I was asking for 3 days. Just 3 days. I brought it up to Greg, my boss, as calmly and respectfully as I could. I explained the situation. I even offered to work evenings the week before to make up for it. I told him I'd make sure my team was fully prepped and everything would run smooth in my absence. He stared at me across that glass conference table and laughed. And then, in front of the senior managers and even the intern, dropped that line like it was a motivational quote. "We're not a charity, man. Family problems are your own problem." And just like that, the air got sucked out of the room. Everyone looked down at their notepads, fake typing or shuffling papers like that would somehow make the moment disappear. No one said a word. Not even Jake, the one guy who'd been through a divorce last year and took 2 weeks off, fully paid. Not even Susan, who once left early because her cat had a fever. I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I just nodded. But something inside me shut off. I walked out of that meeting and sat at my desk. I stared at my screen for 20 minutes, pretending to check emails, but I was really thinking, is this it? Is this what 6 years gets me? I didn't go home and rage about it to my wife. I didn't post a vague status on social media. I just got quiet. That night, when Aiden was asleep and my wife was folding laundry on the couch, I sat down next to her and said, "I'm not quitting. Not yet. But I think I'm done pretending I matter to these people." She didn't say anything for a second. Then she just nodded and said, "Whatever you decide, we'll figure it out." So I stayed. I finished the quarter. I smiled in meetings. I turned in reports. I pretended not to notice when Greg reassigned one of my accounts to a junior rep. I even helped that rep prepare for his first big client pitch. But all that time, I was planning something else. Something quiet. Something Greg wouldn't see coming. After that meeting, I started showing up differently. I still wore the same button-ups, still smiled at the front desk, still sent my happy Monday emails to the team. But I stopped giving extra. I stopped carrying Greg's mess. Stopped covering for his screw-ups in meetings, or reminding him that a client needed follow-up, or jumping on 6 p.m. calls to save face for mistakes he made before lunch. And most importantly, I started listening. I started paying real attention to the cracks in the walls. Our company looked shiny on the outside, but inside, things were quietly breaking. People were tired, burnout, underpaid. And behind Greg's, we're a family here, speeches was a lot of resentment he never noticed because he never actually listened. You know who started slipping first? Sharon, our lead designer. She'd been with the company even longer than me. One day, we were grabbing coffee, and she said, "I got a raise this year. 2%. After I pulled 70-hour weeks for 3 months. Greg told me I should be grateful for job security." That same week, one of our copywriters quietly told me Greg promised her a promotion 3 quarters ago, never delivered. And worse, found out he gave her title to a guy he hired straight off LinkedIn, just because he liked his energy. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing, not even my wife. But every night, after dinner and homework and bedtime stories, I'd opened my laptop, and I started building. Not a resume, not job applications. An agency. A lean, smart, remote-first agency. One where people got paid what they deserved. One where no one would have to beg to be with their sick kid. I reached out to old freelancer contacts. Designers, editors, devs, people I used to manage back in the early days. Quiet professionals who didn't need supervision, just respect. I started pricing tools, domains, figuring out structure, brand, timelines. I even talked to a former client over coffee, casually. Didn't pitch, just listened. But when she said, honestly, Greg's team feels off lately, like no one really wants to be there, I just nodded. Because she wasn't wrong. Greg didn't notice any of it. Because he was too busy trying to climb higher. Too busy micromanaging LinkedIn stats, bragging about company milestones no one in the company actually celebrated. Too busy planning team bonding retreats no one wanted to attend. He thought I was still in the palm of his hand. That was his mistake. Because I was done being grateful for crumbs. I was done acting like I was lucky to be there. The truth? Greg was lucky to have me. And soon, that luck was going to run out. The date was circled on my calendar for months. Aiden's surgery. The one thing in my life I couldn't reschedule, couldn't delay, and wouldn't miss. No matter what Greg or this job threw at me. I kept my head down those few months. Played the role. Showed up, smiled, hit my numbers. Greg thought everything was back to normal. That I had moved on from our little confrontation. He even started joking with me again in meetings, like we were buddies. Like he hadn't completely humiliated me in front of the entire team. But I remembered. Every word. Every smirk. Every time he called other people team players for not asking questions. So, 2 weeks before the surgery, I did everything by the book. I submitted the PTO request, listed the dates, attached the HR policy. Made sure it was all formally documented. The day before I was supposed to leave, I followed up with a reminder. He looked at it, smirked, and said, "Oh yeah, I'll get to it." That's when I knew. He wasn't going to approve it. I could have gone over his head to HR. But I didn't want to waste time arguing with people who saw me as a line item. So I packed my bag, left my badge on the desk, and drove my son and wife to the children's hospital 5 hours away. And let me tell you, that drive was the longest 5 hours of my life. Aiden was quiet. My wife was trying to stay strong, but I could see her eyes glass over every time he coughed in the back seat. Me? I gripped the wheel so hard I thought I'd snap it. We checked in, met with the surgeon, stayed in that tiny white room with those thin pillows and the smell of antiseptic in the air. And the whole time I just kept thinking, this should be all I'm focusing on. Not Greg, not clients, not Slack messages, just my son. And for a while it was. Until I stepped outside the operating room to grab coffee and saw the missed calls. 6. All from Greg. Then a message. You were supposed to be in for the analytics review this morning. If you're not back by noon tomorrow, don't bother coming back at all. No, hope everything's okay. No, let me know how your son's doing. Just that. Like my child's open-heart surgery was an inconvenience. I showed the message to my wife. She read it and just looked at me. For a second I thought she'd cry. But instead, she nodded slowly and said, "Let's never let someone like that decide our future again." That night, when Aiden was out of surgery, successful, thank God, and finally asleep, I sat in the corner of the hospital room with my laptop on my knees. And I booked a meeting. Not with Greg. Not with HR. With that client from earlier. The one who was unhappy. The one who used to be mine before Greg took credit. And in that moment, while the beeping of machines filled the silence, I made a choice. I wasn't going back. Not to that office. Not to that chair. Not to a place where being a good father made me a liability. Greg wanted a workhorse. But he underestimated what happens when the workhorse decides to walk right out of the pasture. 3 days after the surgery, I walked back into that office like nothing happened. I wore my usual button-down, said good morning to the front desk, sat at my desk, logged into Slack. All quiet, like nothing had happened. Greg didn't even look up from his office when I passed. I could feel his ego through the glass, smug and inflated like always. He probably thought I'd come crawling back, that I'd apologize, that I'd beg for my job. He had no idea, because I hadn't just been sitting around at that hospital. While Aiden recovered and slept through post-op grogginess, I finalized my business plan. I locked in the website. I filed the LLC. I scheduled 3 meetings with past contacts. All former clients I had personally managed during Greg's delegation phase, back when he was too busy networking to actually work. And I met with one of them, the big one, the whale, a long-term corporate account we'd had for years. Greg had no clue they were even unhappy. The meeting went well, like really well. So well, in fact, that before I even walked into the office that morning, I'd already signed my first retainer contract under my new company name. But still, I gave Greg one last courtesy. Around 10 a.m., I knocked on his door. He looked up, barely hiding the smirk. Decided to be a team player again. I stepped in, handed him the envelope. What's this? My resignation. Effective immediately. He opened it. Laughed. Really? You sure you want to do this, Mike? It's a bad time to be job hunting. But hey, best of luck out there. Hope you like freelancing for scraps. I smiled. Thanks for everything, Greg. And walked out. No fanfare. No scene. Just a quiet exit. But that wasn't the punch. No, that came later. That afternoon, after lunch, I posted one thing on LinkedIn. After 6 years of incredible growth, I'm excited to announce my next chapter. My new agency, Horizon North Strategies, is officially live. We believe in people-first leadership, fair pay, and never making anyone choose between family and work. Let's build something better. Within 30 minutes, the post blew up. First came the congratulatory DMs. Then came the curious ones, people asking, "Are you hiring?" And then came the first bombshell, a message from the client Greg thought he'd secured for next quarter. They wanted me. They said they'd been hoping for an excuse to leave for months, and I was it. And then the next message. "Sharon, our lead designer. I've been waiting for something like this. Do you have space for me?" By the end of the day, 2 more people reached out, both from Greg's core team. Greg didn't know it yet, but the moment I walked out, he didn't just lose one employee. He'd just started a collapse. Greg didn't notice at first. The man was too confident, too distracted by his own reflection to see the cracks forming behind him. He thought I'd just walked out to become a freelancer, that I'd spend a few months cold calling ex-clients and eventually come crawling back when rent got tight. But the cracks weren't forming. They were widening. And fast. By the end of the first week, 3 people had given notice. Not junior staff, not interns. His lead designer, a senior strategist, and an account manager he bragged about stealing from another firm last year. All gone. Quietly. No drama. Just clean exits and loaded resumes. The week after, 2 clients dropped off the grid. One of them was Greg's Golden Goose, a retail chain we'd been working with for 3 years. They didn't send a warning. They just ghosted. Greg called, texted, sent his usual, "We value your partnership" email. No response. Why? Because I had them now. They were signed with me. Horizon North Strategies, my company, wasn't just an idea anymore. We had clients, deliverables, invoices, and more importantly, we had momentum. We didn't have a fancy office. We didn't have ping-pong tables or catered lunches. But we had a mission, and people believed in it. I made sure everyone on the team got paid well and on time. We didn't work late unless we chose to. We met on Zoom once a week and otherwise trusted each other to just do the damn work. And guess what? People thrived. That's when the missed calls started. It was a Friday morning. I was home, working in the kitchen while Aiden played with his Legos at the table. I picked up my phone to check something. 17 missed calls. All from Greg. The man had gone into panic mode. Then came the voicemail. I swear to you, I played it 3 times just to believe it was real. "Hey Mike. Listen man, I think we got off on the wrong foot. Things have been kinda nuts around here. And, well, I think there's an opportunity for us to work together again. Maybe even partner on something big. I'd be open to discussing equity, if that's what it takes. Just give me a call back, all right? Let's talk." Equity. The same guy who once told me, "We're not a charity," was now offering me equity to help clean up the mess I left behind. It was almost poetic. But I didn't call him back. Not yet. Instead, I waited. Because I knew what was coming next. 3 days later, I got a message from an anonymous LinkedIn profile. Turned out, one of Greg's junior assistants had screenshotted an internal Slack thread. Greg had been blaming everyone but himself. Said people were too emotional, that Gen Z just doesn't want to work, and even claimed I must have poached the team with fake promises. The comments were so bitter it was almost sad. But what really caught my attention? A final message in the thread. "Honestly, if Mike's building something new, I'd jump ship tomorrow." From his newest hire. Greg was bleeding out. And everyone knew it. I finally responded 2 days after the voicemail. Short message. Greg, I'm not interested. I don't build with people who treat family like a liability. You made your choices. Now I'm making mine. Take care. He didn't reply, but I heard from Sharon later that week. Apparently, after reading my message, he locked himself in his office and didn't come out for 2 hours. 6 months later, I barely recognized my life. Aiden was recovering stronger than we hoped. He had color in his cheeks again. He could run for longer than a few minutes without needing to sit. He'd started sleeping through the night without waking up in a cold sweat. And I was home for all of it. No more missed dinners. No more falling asleep at the wheel during commutes. No more sorry, I have a call, while he tried to show me his latest Lego build. Our agency. Booming. We weren't huge, and I didn't want us to be. That was the whole point. But we were agile, efficient, profitable. We had 6 full-time team members, half a dozen contractors, and 5 steady clients. And we were turning down work. Turning it down. One of those clients? The one Greg used to brag about during board meetings. His legacy client. The one whose brand guidelines he used to quote like scripture. They dropped him the month after I left. Quietly, like most of them did. Apparently, after I took my team and left, he tried to pitch the same campaigns, recycled ideas from 3 years ago. They saw right through it. Said they wanted fresh thinking. Said they didn't feel seen anymore. Greg didn't even get a call back. I bumped into him again 2 months ago at a networking event I almost didn't attend. He was sitting at a high-top table alone, drink half full, scrolling on his phone like he was waiting for someone who wasn't going to show. His suit didn't fit quite right. A little too loose around the shoulders. A little too desperate in the eyes. He saw me, stood up, forced a smile. Mike, he said, didn't expect to see you here. I nodded, kept it polite. He launched into small talk. His consulting practice, which was code for no one wants to hire me full-time anymore. Said he was looking for strategic partnerships. He even made a vague comment about how things had gotten out of hand for a bit, but that he was refocusing on what really matters now. I just smiled and said, glad to hear it. We didn't exchange cards. I didn't need to say anything else. Back at home that night, I sat in my little home office, the one I'd built with my own hands, with the whiteboard full of ideas and sticky notes with team goals, and I stared at the post-it note taped above my monitor. The same phrase that started it all. We're not a charity, man. Family problems are your own problem. I kept it there, not out of spite, not to stay angry, but to remember. Because some people build empires on fear, and some people build movements on respect. I chose the second, and I never looked back. And that's the story. If you're still here, that means you're one of us. So go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I drop new chaos every single day, and trust me, tomorrow's story, it's even worse than this one.